It is a rare Wednesday edition of the Friday Football Show, brought to you by Mike's Beer Bar on the North Shore. Meet me at Mike's. Tim Benz and Mike DeCourcy with you. Glad that you are with us. Mike's, of course, right across the street from PNC Park at the base of the Clemente Bridge. Get yourself a steak and a stone. Get yourself one of their 500 available craft beers, 80 rotating taps. Fantastic place to go for an all-day Black Friday affair, watching sports all the way up until an NFL game on Black Friday. It's a great football weekend to go spend with your friends, family, whoever might be in town. Mike, you're not getting out of town for Thanksgiving. Are you sticking around?
I am not. That's the whole point of moving back, Tim. No more traveling during the holidays.
There you go. Yeah, certainly understandable. I think my travels are up 19 to like Shaler or Ross or something like that. So worry about that maybe around New Year's or something, getting out of town. And we'll see how far along the Steelers are at that point in the season to determining their playoff fate. And that's actually where I want to start the show today as we get ready for the game against the Buffalo Bills on Sunday at Acrisure Stadium. It's our view from Mount Washington, our 30,000-foot big picture view, state of the Steelers heading into game day. And I thought about this, Mike. I wrote about it this week in the Trib. The clearest path of how I think their schedule goes from this point forward after the loss to the Bears last week is, again, at 9-8. I think you beat Miami, you beat Cleveland, even though you rarely win there, and you split with Baltimore because that kind of feels like the nature of the rivalry. That seems like a logical path to 9-8. You factor in the other loss to Baltimore and then Buffalo this week in Detroit, two teams that for most of the season we've just perceived as being better than the Steelers. One of those games at home, one on the road. You lose those two, and okay, the streak's alive. You're still above 500. Still haven't had a losing season in Mike Tomlin's tenure. Still haven't had a losing season since 2003. Throw the parade down Grant Street. Or if it's going to wobble, I don't know, Mike. I feel like if it wobbles, there's more opportunity to wobble to 8-9 than 9-8. They could lose to Buffalo. They could lose to Detroit. They've won once in the last 7 years in Cleveland. They're 0-3 in prime time this year. The Miami game is a prime time game. I'm not convinced they're going to split with Baltimore right now. That could be a sweep. So if you made me choose, because of what happened last week against the Bears, kind of a coin flip game, in my opinion. It was thought to be that way going in. It played out that way, a field goal at the end. They lost the coin flip. And I just don't know how many more coin flips they can lose before they get below 500 for the first time since 2003.
Well, yeah. We were talking about this earlier in the week. I was talking about this with another reporter. And you look at the schedule and you say, okay, exactly what you said. Buffalo, Detroit, Baltimore, probably a loss. And my response to that was, yeah, that all makes logical sense. But one, this is the National Football League, so logic is often not in play. And two, this is these 2025 Pittsburgh Steelers, and logic is rarely in play with this group. It wouldn't shock me if they lost to Cleveland and Miami and then beat Buffalo and Detroit. It becomes so very difficult to predict. That's, to me, what's frustrating about this team is the inconsistency. And I look at the inconsistency as largely the product of inconsistent schemes. They get it right one week and they're able to prevail. They get it wrong the next week and they lose. And it hasn't really mattered the opposition. I mean, they had the scheme wrong against New England, but they still won because of all the turnovers they were able to create. They had the scheme absolutely right against Indianapolis, nailed it. And then the following week went out and were somewhat the opposite against the Chargers. And obviously that was the one where Aaron Rodgers had his first poor game of the season. So I look at last week and the job they did the prior week in Bengals 2 against Jamar Chase, where you took the best receiver in football and made him disappear. He had 2 catches for 14 yards before Jalen Ramsey was ejected.
I love the way you call it that, Bengals 2, like it's a bad sequel of a Michael Bay movie or two.
Yes.
Bengals 2, spitting distance.
There you go. Perfect title. We'll see that next Thanksgiving. And they did that by covering aggressively, a lot of man defense, and then they played so much cover 3 against the Bears, and the Bears destroyed it. Yeah. And I understand there was attention to the running game they had to pay, and it did work. But it goes back to the math issue that I talked about in Bengals 1, which was a stinker. It only was like 35% on Rotten Tomatoes. The first game, they decided that they were going to keep that big play from happening. And you get the math problem. Yes, 4 20-yard completions does equal 1 80-yard completion. And there's no superior answer there. They both are failure. It doesn't help you to only allow the teams to go down 20 touchdown. That doesn't help any more than, there goes 80 yards. It doesn't. Unless you're at the end of a game and trying to protect a 7-point lead, which the Steelers have blown that or in that case, it was a 2-touchdown lead, but the Steelers have fiddled with that a little bit in the Minnesota game. So I just don't think that, look, I don't think this is a extraordinary team by any means, but I think that they could be better. And I think that the tinkering that they're doing from week to week with their approach isn't working. What's working is when they are playing the aggressive football that they come out of the games, like against the Colts or like against the Bengals, and they said, we simplified the scheme, we were aggressive, and we won. And then they go back and they play zone, which they're very bad at it, or the opposing teams that they think will not play well against zones do it very well. One of the two. In either case, it's a mistake.
Yeah, you know what? You bring up a point there, and I'm not sure if you're directly speaking to this or just triggered something in my head, but one of my growing and increasing gripes about this year's team, and maybe the latter 5-6 years of the Tomlin tenure, is the Steelers used to be at their best when they just did what they did and made people react to it. And maybe sometimes we bitched and complained about them being too predictable, but too predictable still got them to 11 wins and division championships and a shot at doing something more in the playoffs. Now, I feel like, and this is Tomlin setting the directive, they are consumed with what do we do poorly and how do we get away from being exploited? Like, I feel like they coach backwards a lot.
But they aren't getting away from what they do poorly, because they have been a really poor zone defense team. They get wrecked in zones.
But they're doing that, Mike, because they're afraid they're going to get burned over the top.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
That is absolutely been.
We can't do X, so let's do Y. Even though we might not be proficient at it, it might not be what we do best, but that other team is going to hurt us if we stay in what we feel we're better at. Like the defense thing, like what you're talking about in the secondary, the whole concept of getting Slay and getting Ramsey, the whole concept of getting those guys, even Thornhill and, Chuck Clark, everybody else that they used to revamp the secondary, was we're going to play more man-to-man defense. Then they figured out we're not really good at it.
So I think that some of that, though, came from the fact that Thornhill, they thought that they could up the man-to-man defense by upping the cornerback position and de-emphasizing the safety position as a result, because they had to use their all-pro safety to up the cornerback position. When they found out that didn't work because you were too weak at the back, and because Slay wasn't proficient any longer as a cover corner, then they started to do what you're talking about, and then that didn't work. And so then they moved Ramsey to safety, and all of a sudden things started to work when they did play a little bit of man. And the second Bengals game is a primary example of that. I'm not saying you never play zone again. Look, I'm not a football coach, and I get that. But I have seen them get burned over the middle on basic routes, either crossing routes or slants. They have to be the worst team in football right now at covering slants, because the Bengals did it to them, the Patriots did it to them, and the Bears did it to them. Those are all highly capable passing teams. But when they stopped those slants in the second Bengals game, they dominated the game. And then they went right back to worrying about the long pass and the run game, and they gave up those slants to the Bears. And again, like I said, 420-yard completions equals 180-yard completion. It's the same result, and it was the same result over and over and over again this past Sunday.
Well, I think the offensive part of what I'm talking about is we don't want to go to the deep middle of the field. We don't even want to go to the moderate middle of the field. So we're just going to throw go balls down the sideline to Roman Wilson and DK. Well, guess what? Just because he fits the physical profile of it, DK ain't great at that. And your quarterbacks ain't great at throwing the balls there either. Either he's not getting separation or he's not winning contested catch battles, or they're not putting it at a high enough catch point or whatever, a little from column A, B, and C. They're not good at it. And that really manifested with Mason in there against the Bears, because that's all they were trying. Their idea of a deep shot or a hope for an explosive play was gas it down the sideline, and they were like 1 for 5 on them. They only tried 5 the whole game, and everything else was, you looked at what Mason was, the CBS graphic went up, I think it was very early in the fourth quarter when they were extending that 17-play drive into the red zone. 14 of 14 air yards under 10, 1 of 4 at the time. They tried one more later, air yards over 10. No wonder, because they lost the coin flip 4 out of 5 times. It was, does the defensive back get it or does my receiver get it? And, when you're going up against a 6'4" corner who's pretty good at high pointing the ball, apparently, you might lose that battle. So, you got to get more creative. They're afraid of the deep middle of the field, so they only try the sidelines, and they just weaken themselves.
I'm less bothered by the fear of the deep middle, although it is a problem, than I am by the absolute relative avoidance of the intermediate middle, where you have the 3 tight ends who should be dominant, especially
against tight end based offense, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's not happening. It hasn't developed at all. I mean, it only has developed in the sense that a tight end, especially Darnell Washington, is an option in the short swing passing game, and he's a very good option there because he's so hard to tackle. But they're not throwing tight end routes on the regular. Someone pointed out on Twitter this week, well, what do you mean they're not throwing over the middle? And then showed the pass to Freiermuth that was exactly what we're talking about. Okay, throw 20 of those, not 1. They throw 1. 1's not doing it.
Well, the funny thing was, against Cincinnati, when Mason came in and they had to kind of think on the fly, he told Arthur Smith, these are the plays that I like. And maybe it's just because even though the Bears defense has some woes of its own, the Bengals defense is even that much worse. I don't know. But it looked like they were clearing things out and opening up the short middle, and there was room not only to catch it on a hook or a slant or a square in or something like that, but there's some room to roam afterwards. Now, maybe, again, that's just the Bengals being the Bengals. That could be the case, but it didn't feel like there was much purpose to the shorter throws in the middle as there were the week before against Cincinnati.
The Bears were down to their 17th linebacker in that game.
Mike Singletary was in the building. I thought they were going to give him shoulder pads at one point. Yes.
Yeah. And they took no advantage. The Steelers took no advantage of that at all on those types of routes that you just described. They played. I watched the Cleveland-Baltimore game the previous week after that was followed the Bengals 2. And in that game, Dylan Gabriel gets hurt and Shadur Sanders goes out, and they had a lead, and they played like they were afraid of their own quarterback. Shadur hadn't gotten much practice, blah, blah, blah. You're gonna hold Baltimore to 3 points. I mean, your defense is really good, but at some point it's going to bend a little bit. And they were never going to win that game with 16 points, but they were afraid that Shadur would make a mistake. And so they put him in impossible situations that led him to make mistakes. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a rookie quarterback. And I've seen that with college coaches doing it with freshman quarterbacks. But you're doing it with the guy that you signed as a high-end backup and a guy that a lot of people in Pittsburgh thought might be the starting quarterback before the Aaron Rodgers thing ultimately came to fruition. And you treated him like he was a rookie with the way you played. They played that game. The offensive game plan was run from strength, pass from fear. And that did not make sense given the circumstances. I never believe in fearing your own players. Now, look, if you're up 3 touchdowns and you're stuck playing, like if the Steelers had somehow gotten up 3 touchdowns and then Will Howard had to come into the game because Mace got nicked or whatever. Okay, I get that then. But you're not up 3 touchdowns. You're in a game that's going back and forth, and you have a guy who's played for 7-8 years, and you're still treating him marginally as if he were a rookie. I really was disappointed in that. It started with the second play of the game, that silly make a play throw down the sideline that became an interception. Sometimes they're going to make a play. Make a play is not strategy, Tim. I mean, make a play is we're kind of desperate and we need something to happen here. So let's throw this up and see what happens. But their continued reliance on those sideline routes. They've had multiple sideline routes that were make a play type situations picked off. So right now, I would say that would be one that you'd want to put back in the bag.
All right, so if you want to comment, big picture on the state of the Steelers, please do so. Getting some comments in, and we have a bunch that were ready to go even before the show began today. So go ahead and line them up, and we'll get to your thoughts as the show goes along. Usually get to those after or right before we get to our predictions later in the program. Give you time to give your thoughts on what you think about the Steelers heading into this game against Buffalo. Let's get to our keys to victory right now. I'll start off with my offensive key. We do offense, defense, and then one bonus one, whichever direction we want to go. I'll say offensively, due to Buffalo, what you did to Chicago running the football. I don't think you have to change much there. The Chicago run defense is not good. It's 28th in the league. I think it was 26th before the Steelers put 186 on them last week. Buffalo's defense stopping the run is even worse. It's 30th in the league. It's barely better than Cincinnati, for crying out loud. I wouldn't change a thing. Now, maybe you have to because you don't have Broderick Jones starting on the left side. But again, you can't stay away from running to that side of the field too. You can't like think to yourself, okay, we have to put a ton of tight end help over there, so we can't run right behind Fautanu. Come on, he's supposed to be your future Pro Bowler. You can run right too when he's by himself out there. I wouldn't change your thinking all that much. This is not a good team stopping the run. You're at times have been a good running team. Run the football. You don't want to expose Rodgers to hits anyway. Be dedicated to it. I think it'll work.
People who have read my tweets over the years know I am like the last person to say establish the run, like in all caps. I've always thought that was, and that's a big Pittsburgh thing, is establish the run. I'm not into that, especially if establishing the run means running into a brick wall 3 times in a row and punting. But, man, this is the day to do it. The Bills are, as you said, really poor in stopping the run. Atlanta got 210 on the ground against them. Now, I know Atlanta's got 2 really great backs, but 210. Miami, I don't think they've got Bijan Robinson in Miami, and they hit him for
one. He's good.
Yeah, but he's not Bijan. But
no.
They hit him for 197. 9 of 11 Buffalo opponents have topped 100 yards on the ground against them. Remember, the Steelers went years at one point in the prior decade without allowing a 100-yard rusher. 9 of 11 have done that. 5 have topped 150. And in the 4 losses, which is key, they gave up an average of 147 yards. The Steelers ran the ball effectively against Chicago, as you mentioned. I think they have to do that. And what they really need to do is to try to stay out of those 3rd and 2s. If you're going to run the ball on 2nd and 2, fewer pitches, man. Like, get the first down. You're trying to catch them in concentrating on the middle with those deep pitches, and those 2nd and 2 deep pitches, man. A lot of times they don't work. Be judicious about those.
I'll stick with you, Mike. Why don't you take your defensive one first? Go ahead.
Yeah, for me, I obviously with Josh Allen, you have significant concerns. He's a great quarterback, and even in this season, where they have not excelled in the sense that they expected to, he still has done some wondrous things. But he has been susceptible they have been susceptible to teams that are really effective rushing the passer. It wasn't just Houston getting them 8 times in the Thursday night game. They averaged 5 sacks in the last 3 losses. And I think you need to put pressure on Josh Allen because he will throw the pick. I mean, he has 9 interceptions.
He's trying to do so much right now. He's playing hero ball, and it's affecting him. Yeah, I think it's up here with him now too. I've got to do everything on my own.
And you have to try to force that because the Bills have not lost when in the games he did not throw a pick. The Bills are 5-0. So you have to be aggressive against their receivers, thinking about disrupting them, getting the ball away from them. Turnovers are going to be another big key in this game. They have struggled, the Bills, when they have not been on the best side of the turnover battle, as have the Steelers. So I think it's a game in which you need to be disruptive both in the backfield and in the secondary.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up that way because I was having trouble deciding between my defensive key. I had sort of a 1 and 1A, but I'll just dovetail off of your thought there. Can you at least be 3/4 of what Houston's pass rush was? Can you be half of what Houston's pass rush was? Maybe not 8 sacks. How about 4? Their left tackle is banged up. They're probably going to have to go with a backup at left tackle. I think they should be able to get home enough to maybe create the turnovers you're talking about. It's not going to look like what Houston looked like. I'm not expecting that. Can it be more than one big play? They had the one huge play in the goal line to get the ball back and score the defensive touchdown against Chicago. It's got to be more than that. It's got to be more present. If it's not going to be a huge play, it's just got to be more effective to affect the plays that Buffalo is trying to run. Be 3/4 of Houston. I'm not asking you to be the full Texans assault. Be 3/4 of it. Be 2/3 of it. That's all I'm asking. But the main defensive point I want to bring up, my God, that red zone defense has to get better. Like I don't remember throughout the course of this year, through all the issues that we've talked about, various forms of the Steelers' defensive woes, I don't remember thinking that the defensive red zone was glaring, but that defensive red zone performance against Chicago was hideous. Like that,
they were in the wrong scheme. The wrong scheme on 2 of their touchdowns.
You're talking about the Monungai run where they were in nickel and they
were in nickel with a on a third and goal from the 2.
Right,
they were in nickel. That was one, and then the Bears were lined up with 3 receivers, and they were still in a cover 3 scheme, and it wasn't the right fit for that. So this twice they gave up 2 touchdowns on. No, this was addressed at Mike Tomlin's press conference. And
no, it wasn't addressed. It was asked. It was not addressed.
That's what I mean. It was discussed. Yes. It was discussed. But they were in the wrong scheme on that play, and of course Mike was not going to acknowledge that. But how do you wind up in the wrong alignment? Of course, you wound up in the wrong alignment also on offense. We'll get to that. But you were on the wrong alignment in 2 of their touchdown plays. That can't happen. I mean, you're going to make 1 mistake a game, maybe, but you can't make 2 like that, and especially on the same side of the ball.
Moore just shook Ramsey easily on one play. Loveland shook Duggar. Then there was the one play that was a little bit higher up in the red zone. I think they technically only had 3 red zone trips, but I'm going to count it as 4. The other one, like, nobody covered anybody, So it just the red zone touchdowns, the way those touchdowns were given up were just painfully easy.
Yes.
So I think the red zone defense has to get better. My bonus key is going to be who's going to handle the playing surface better, because you had the WPIALs last week. You're going to have Pitt Saturday against Miami. So I imagine wherever Miami's going to go, that part of the field will be worn out. We'll see what Mason Heinzel and Pitt does to try to even things out a little bit. Maybe they'll win. I don't know. I like the Heinzel kid. Let's see. But regardless, that's a lot of wear and tear. The weather, as we talked about, has been lousy of late. Oddly, I'm still not sure about this, but last thing in the world I'll profess to be is a grass growing expert. I just got to worry about the weeds in my backyard. But I still think that the issue with the field earlier in the season was less about, old Heinz Field issues coming back. we had so little rain back then.
Yeah.
I don't think they knew what they were doing when it came to like dealing with that little rain in Pittsburgh. Usually we get a ton of rain, especially once it gets to fall. Now this is what we've been dealing with for 5 years now, when actually the field has been pretty good for the last 5 years.
Yes.
So maybe the field will be fine. But if it isn't, whoever handles that better, I think, will be an important key to this game, especially the kickers.
Well, my bonus key is to say, be the Steelers. They went for the 4th and 1 attempt at conversion in the first half against Chicago, and afterward, Tomlin was asked about why go for the first down there, not kick, and he said sometimes if you can't make a 4th and 1, you don't deserve to win. Well, sometimes if you don't take the 3 points, you don't deserve to win. Most obvious glaring example of that is Detroit's still waiting for their first Super Bowl because Dan Campbell decided that he was going for it every time they had a chance, even when they were protecting a lead against San Francisco a couple of years ago. Sometimes it's good to take the points. 3 points is a lot of points in a football game. If a touchdown getting all the way down there counts for 7, getting nowhere near there and still walking away with 3 points is pretty good. So do this. Be the Steelers. The Steelers won 2 games in 2024 with no touchdowns and a total of 12 field goals. So I'm not saying like I want them to settle for a field goal every time they get into the red zone or every time they get into opposing territory. But when it's prudent, you do it. You've not shown any great facility for converting 4th and 1. Now, that was a pretty clever play, the fake tush push that Gainwell converted for 49 yards and nearly a touchdown. I'll give them that. But even that doesn't say we can get a yard. It says we can trick them and get 49. So I'd say if you're on the 35-yard line and you got the best or second best kicker in football and points matter, take the points.
All right, so those are our keys to the game. What do you think the keys are for the Steelers? You can comment. We'll get to your comments before the top of the hour. Go ahead and post them on Facebook or on YouTube. You can also email me, tbenz@triblive.com, and you can send them via social media, tbenzpgh. Okay, so let's get to our other side of the sideline, our other sideline. This is where we look at a theme to this week's game for the Steelers' opponent. And mine for Buffalo is, I'm going to get real esoteric here. I'm not going to go XC and OZ about the Bills, but you got to change your eye level here, man. Like, this might be even more of a message to Bills fans because we've seen it around here in Pittsburgh, and you've gone through some pretty good years lately, and you might have forgotten what it's like. It can happen in 5 years. The lines can get blurred playing in the AFC East. Ask Patriot fans. They can tell you all about that, what it's like to be nothing great, nothing good again. But, for the Bills, that's what I'm getting at is you got to change your eye level about where you are in this race. This is not about catching the Patriots anymore. This game is about holding off the team that's right behind you for the playoffs.
Right.
Maybe the Chiefs, or maybe the Texans who just beat you, or maybe the Jags. Like, they're facing a very similar circumstance, Mike, I think, to what the Steelers are insofar as you're going to be fortunate to get the second team out of your division, and it better be you, because I think the West is still going to get 3. If it isn't, it's going to be because you might hold off Kansas City.
Right.
And I can't believe this, but there's 3 teams in the mix in the South. That might be the biggest surprise in football is that there's 3 teams in the South that might be capable of getting in somehow. It probably won't work out that way by the time the tiebreakers all align and whatnot 6 weeks from now. But that's what I'm saying to Bills fans is like, this is a big game for you because you don't want this tiebreaker hanging over your head like New England had that tiebreaker hanging over their head with the Steelers until they started running away from the division. And that sucks for Pittsburgh right now because if you look at the tiebreakers and you start forecasting down the line, their best win in the conference ain't going to do crap for them because the Patriots are probably going to win the division anyway.
Well, I would say that you never know. It might get down to AFC record or
it could. You're right. Yeah, like if it came down to the you play the Bills. If it came down to Houston, who they don't play this year, like you might have a better conference record, and that win could help you. Yes.
Yeah, and as well as the Indy win too. I'm kind of in the same headspace relative to the Bills as you. I look at the Bills and say, we have seen, and we have firsthand experience here in Pittsburgh with teams recovering from uneven regular season starts that are, why isn't this team better? And I look at the 2005 Steelers as the golden example of that. Why wasn't that team better? How did you get to 7-5 with that group? Well, it happened, but it wasn't over. And that's got to be Buffalo's mentality. Just because we haven't been good enough to date doesn't mean we can't be good enough in the future. And that Steelers team wound up winning their next 4 games after the 7-5 start to get to 11-5 and get into the playoffs as the final wild card team, then go on the road for 3 playoff games and win them all, and then win the Super Bowl in Detroit. So that is out there for the Bills, even though they've started poorly. This is a team that their defense has slipped to the bottom half of the league. Ed Oliver's injury has not been helpful at all.
Right.
He's been banged up almost the entire year. Allen has not been as consistent. He doesn't have as many weapons as he had in the past, but he's still got maybe the best running back, or the best running back in the AFC, or one of the two, I guess, with the Colts star. But James Cook has been fantastic. He's already got 1,000 rushing yards. They're still the 5th highest scoring team in the NFL. So there is a reason to fear this team. But if you're from the Steelers standpoint, you got to play these Bills, not the Bills that beat you in Buffalo in 2023, not the ones that almost made the Super Bowl in Kansas City last January. You got to play these Bills and make sure they stay these Bills.
Do you know who the last Bills quarterback the Steelers was that lost to the Steelers in Pittsburgh?
I do not know that. Frank Reich?
Manuel.
Oh, wow.
2013, because they played up there like 4 out of the last 5 times they played up there, and they played here in 17, and Allen beat them. That was the Duck year where Duck turned the ball over 4 times. I think they had 5 red zone turnovers or something ridiculous like that. They lost that game, and that was the death spiral that kept them out of going to the playoffs without Ben that year. And then they just keep going up there. They've gone up there all the time. It's just how the schedule is broken out.
Right.
But the last time they beat a Bills quarterback here was E.J. Manuel in 2013. That's a long way to go back.
It is. I hear him on the radio a lot now, which says something.
Yeah, and what's he doing? ACC Network?
He does a lot of the ESPN college or is that the Sirius XM college, whatever they call it. I listen all the time on there, and I hear him. He's quite good.
Let's get to our stat pack now, Mike. You want to go first for your stat?
Yeah, my stat is 37. That's the number of teams that have finished worse than 10-7 since the NFL introduced the 17-game schedule a couple years back. 37. And it's well more than half the league hasn't been able to do 10-7. So we keep hearing the Steelers fans who dread the idea that they'll wind up 10-7 again. First of all, 10-7 would be a heck of a performance coming from where they stand now. But second of all, 10-7 is a successful season. It's not everything you want, but 10-7 is not to be sneered at. More than half of the teams are finishing worse than 27. What
about 9-8? What's the number at 9-8?
I did not do the number at 9-8. You know, the Steelers have only
did the number at 9-8 a couple years ago, and It was significantly higher. And I don't know if you want to sneer or not sneer at 9-8 versus 10-7, but like, I know where you're going with it. You got to get to the playoffs and win a playoff game, especially now that there's 7 teams in the playoff. There's 7 teams in the playoff. You play 17 weeks to eliminate only 60% of the conference.
Well, that's a lot. 60% is a lot.
Well, actually, it's not even 60. It's more like, 42% of the conference gets in, right? Well, what's
okay, so 58. Yeah, all right.
7 divided by 16, whatever.
My point is that the fundamental point is I get into arguments with Steelers fans all the time. First of all, about them calling them mediocre. And I'm like, please look up the word. They can't have taught that word poorly in every school district in Western Pennsylvania. It can't be right. Like you can't be in the upper 40% of teams that, as I mentioned, have been finishing 10-7 or better. You can't be in the upper percentage and be mediocre. Are they what you want? Hey, that's whatever you want is what you want. And if you want to complain that that's what they've been, that they haven't been good enough, fine. But you also have to remember that they've done what they've done over the course of the last, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, last 4 years with like Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Mason Rudolph. All those guys have started at quarterback for you, in addition to Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, who had Super Bowl pedigrees coming in, but were also toward or at the end of their careers. I mean, you've continued to be relevant in a period where your quarterback position has been at best adequate and mostly deficient.
Okay, but if that's like a sort of passive, like defensive Tomlin, when you say mediocre, I assume you're getting people that are saying mediocre Mike, right?
I was going to bring that up. They often use that.
Yes.
Sometimes they just say mediocre, but then sometimes they'll refer to mediocre.
But I mean, Mike, when Cowher walked into the building, his quarterback was Bubby. And like he went to a Super Bowl and another AFC championship game with Neil O'Donnell. He won a division and a playoff game with Mike Tomczak. He went to 3 AFC championships with Cordell. He won a division and a playoff game with Tommy Maddox. So like I don't want to pin a Medal of Honor.
It's not the same league now, Tim. It's not.
But it was within the context of that league, and there were only 5 teams that made the playoffs then.
But my point is that the league has evolved. It's a better league now. There are more quality teams now than there were then. It's harder.
I don't know about that. I mean, Tom.
There's no doubt about that.
Cowher walked in and won a division in his first year in 11-5.
I understand it. He did a great job. Don't get me wrong. I'm not demeaning Bill, although they did lose 4 AFC championship games at home during his tenure. That often gets overlooked. And he did fall below the line on 3 occasions.
Well, I think that's the point, is that when they're in that 3-year run with Cordell, when they were 6-10, 6-10, 7-9, 9-7, or whatever it was.
And then he subsequently went 6-10 again.
I don't feel the difference between 9-8 in a 17 playoff league, or 8-8, the number of times he got to that before the schedule expanded. 8-8, 9-8, getting in as the 7th or 6th seed. That to me doesn't feel like that much of a greater accomplishment than 7-9 back in the day. The season didn't feel. What was it? What was the difference?
Did you see the Tampa game with Cordell back in what was that 90, 98?
Yeah, the crying game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was awful. So but there was 2-6 at the halfway
and the whole
point.
Kent Graham disaster.
Yeah, okay.
Let's not forget that.
But I don't see how those seasons felt all that different than 2-6 and having to rally to get to 8-8.
Well, it was obviously 2-6. I'll tell you how it feels different, and this is one of the reasons why I believe in Mike Tomlin as a coach, because it wasn't over. Because they were 2-6 and they had almost nothing to play for, and they still went out on the streak that they did. And they had 2 8-8 seasons, so I don't remember exactly which one was which.
Well, it was 13-14, and they missed you're talking about the field goal miss at the end for Kansas City?
Yes, that was the point I was going to make. So even though it should have been over, it wasn't over. And they still almost made the playoffs.
Okay, but how is that different than 9-7 in the year 2000 before Heinz Field opened up, and they were in it until the 4:00 start in San Diego? And
I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it is, but it's different than 6-10, and it's different than the 80s.
Except, but the postseason success is not. The
postseason success has not been there, but they have not. Like I said. When you're looking at a team that is taking out Kenny Pickett or Mitch Trubisky or Mason Rudolph into the playoffs, the postseason success isn't going to be there. You're going into Kansas City, you're going into Buffalo, you're going into Kansas City with Ben on, in his final game at the very end. You went into Buffalo with Mason. The likelihood you're going to win those games is not strong. I mean, it's not like they've lost to bad teams. They've lost to elite teams. The Baltimore game last year down there, that was probably the one game where you didn't have a legitimate reason to play as poorly as you did. And I'm not saying, we went through 2 pages of the rundown already, and I've been plenty critical of the things that they've done a week ago in Chicago or 4 days ago in Chicago. I'm not immune to criticizing him, but I think that the whole concept that this is easy to do is misguided, and it's not backed up by the facts. When you look at what the challenge, if it were so easy to do what they were doing, why can't Vegas do it at all? Why can't Cleveland do it more than once or twice in 25 years? Why can't Cincinnati do it more than once or twice when they've got Joe Burrow as their quarterback?
Yeah, but now you sound like a Maple Leaf fan comparing themselves to the San Jose Sharks or something. Comparing yourself to lesser franchises doesn't make your lack of accomplishments better.
But that's the point, is that you could be one of those lesser franchises. I had someone on Twitter yesterday say to me, and we talked about this to an extent last week. I had someone on Twitter this week say to me, well, the Patriots got rid of Belichick, and then now look where they are. And I'm like, yeah, but the Titans got rid of the guy that the Patriots hired, and now they're the worst team in the league. That could be you. There are lots of things I would do differently. I would not have allowed Mike Tomlin to make the offensive coordinator hire. And if he weren't happy with that, I would have said it's been real. But I would not have allowed him to do that because of his track record in that area. But his track record in getting players to play hard for him and for the logo is almost unparalleled.
All right, we are behind since we got kind of bogged down in the Tomlin history rendition, but we do that from time to time, and we will because he'll be coaching here for the next 40 years. I got to give my stats. I got two stats. The stat that I really wanted to give was 12. That's my stat. The Bills have won 12 games in a row as a favorite with rest advantage. That's against the money line. That's not covering the spread, but I got that from Bet Rivers. The Bills have won 12 games in a row as a favorite with a rest advantage, and they did play Thursday night against Houston. Here's another goofy one. Here's another stat, 29. There were 29 questions at the Mike Tomlin press conference yesterday. One of them was tangentially about the Buffalo Bills. You're playing a team that's won a division 5 years in a row. You're playing a frequent rival. You're playing a team that might go to the playoffs this year with one of the stars of the National Football League. And you were asked one question in 29 about that team. That's how much people are obsessing about what's going on your own team. Usually, Mike goes through his litany of, his 15-minute intro, his 15-minute monologue, and at least 7 or 8 minutes of that monologue is about the other team. So he covers a lot of bases, and then we kind of go off from there. But if we're thinking in the media at all about the matchup on Sunday, we're going to ask him more about the other team. We did. We've done it a million times. This is a good team, and no one had any interest in talking about the Buffalo Bills at all. And I haven't heard one iota of criticism about that from him. How come you didn't ask him about the Bills? Because there's 50 things to ask him about with this team. That was telling, Mike, I thought anyway.
I think you're 100% right. It does say a lot. And it also is reflective of the post-game press conferences that are so quick. The game on Sunday was a 1:00 game. And the post-game press conference, I didn't time this one, but I believe it went less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, it often does. Yeah.
And they've gone like that, like the Chargers one did. And I just kissed it off as late deadline on the West Coast, but they lost. He doesn't want to talk much about it. And if you're going to get him to talk about it, it's possibly Tuesday afternoon rather than Sunday at any point.
All right, let's get to our Who Will Take Flight segment. This is where we promote our fun night at Mike's that we have every Monday. It is flight night. You can get yourself a flight of all their fantastic beers on draft. Like I said, 80 rotating taps of some fantastic craft beers. They got all their holiday beers on tap right now. Those are great to get. And you can go there for Monday Night Football. The Monday Night Football, there's some really good games. I don't know if I need, we'll get to that. We'll get to the whole holiday schedule in just a second. But these Sunday and Monday night games, one-sided games, it looks like, Mike. The Sunday night game is Denver against Washington. You got to pick the Broncos there. And then the Pats against the Giants. The Giants, for being bad, are somehow fun and interesting, though. I've got the over-under for Gunnar Olszewski touchdown passes at over 1.5 in this game against the Patriots. We'll see how it goes. Gunnar's a former Patriot, don't you know? But that's the game you can watch if you're a Patriot fan, if you're a New York fan. I know we got a lot of Boston, New York transplants in Pittsburgh. Go watch the game at Mike's and get yourself a flight at Mike's. Who's going to take flight from me? I'm going to go with YA Black for the Steelers. Increased playing time, I would imagine, because Derek Harmon is out. Got to take flight. Got to be good against that run game for the Bills, or else they're going to be cooked and in trouble. And I don't mean that with a pun. It just hit me that I said that. Ryan Vandermark for Buffalo might be the elevated left tackle because of the injuries that they've got up front. That means that he's going to have to deal with, I guess, Herbig on that side. But who knows if they move guys around or not. But those are my two take flight guys.
Well, I'm going to go Jaylen Warren for the Steelers. I will not say to run him until the wheels come off. Let him keep his wheels, but run him until the Bills cry uncle. Do they still say that? Do the kids still say cry uncle? Maybe not, but
I don't know. That might be a dated one for us.
But anyway, I think
just yell 6'7". When in doubt, they just say 6'7". That ends the conversation. Yeah,
6'7". Yes. Well, run Jaylen Warren until he's had 600, at least 67 carries. If he gets the 67 carries, then you stop. For the Bills, I'm just going to say Josh Allen and duck because I do think that the Steelers are going to struggle to contain him. The question is, I think, is can you contain him? I go back to my basketball analogy. Can you hoop with him? Can you match scores? If you go out there and think that you're going to hold him to 14 or 17 points, I think that's going to be difficult to do. But you have to get big stops and you have to score. And the best way to deal with all of that, of course, is to go back to my key to the offense and to my my player to take flight, and that's to run the ball with Jaylen Warren and keep the Bills off the field.
Time to go around the league, and this is what I was talking about just a few moments ago. I don't need a Black Friday night game. I don't. I'm going to gorge myself on football on Thursday. I'm going to watch it all day on Saturday and Sunday. I can do something else on Friday night. I could watch basketball. I could watch hockey. And the unfortunate thing is I'm going to feel obligated to watch this game because I have tons of fantasy football interest in this game. That's first and foremost. But it's a good game. It's two division leaders in the NFC. I'm going to feel like I have to watch this game between the Eagles and the Bears.
But it is an NFC game, so it doesn't have bearing on your profession, right, so to speak. So you can excuse it that way if you really want to pass. But it is a great game. I mean, Philly especially wobbling, allowing Dallas to come back on them. Philly is a place that can't seem to. They can't ever be happy with success. They find a way to turn success, greatness into consternation as quickly as any city in America. That's an interesting point about the Friday night game. For me, the Thursday night game,
college basketball tournament still going on by Friday. The one where Syracuse is in it, where you got to outscore everybody.
That one will be over, but there will be the battle for Atlanta still.
Oh, I've gone to that. I like that. That's fun. I've been to that tournament before.
That'll still be going on, so that'll be fun.
Have you ever
but I was going to say, I'm sorry.
Have you ever covered that? I
have never covered that. I've vacationed at Atlantis, but I've never covered the tournament.
The weird thing about it is, if you go down there this time of year, it's called the windy season. I'm like, all right, what? No, it's friggin' windy. You're on the lazy river and it's white capping.
So I'm going to talk about, since we're on today, and the Bengals are playing on Thanksgiving, we have the opportunity to talk about Joe Burrow likely returning. And big. Whether that can help the Steelers, maybe. They still have 2 Ravens games, and a game against the Bills, who are now somewhat playoff competition. We'll see whether the Steelers can stay in the wild card race. Sunday will have a huge part in whether they are just facing the Ravens for the division title or whether they can be competitive in the wild card race. If they can win this game, they'll have a chance at that. So, and
Is,
then
is
the
it
other
best
thing
for
that was,
Steelers, do you think? Like, I mean, I was thinking about this because under 99 out of 100 times, I'd say yes, absolutely. You want Joe Burrow instead of Joe Flacco for sure. Like anytime you get him, but like the one thing that I was thinking about is it would maybe even better. It's a short week, not for him, but it's also a short prep week for the team. You know, there's that.
yeah,
I would have loved to have seen Flacco against the Ravens. You know, like who is advantaged there? Is it Flacco
yeah,
against the Ravens, or is it Harbaugh and the Ravens against Flacco? It just would have made for a great storyline to hold off Burrow for one more week. But
definitely
yeah,
true.
it's Burrow coming back. I get it.
Yeah. And so the other one was about what the Colts did in overtime. Weren't able to. They were stuck with the ball. I believe KC won the toss, and so they had to take the ball, and they weren't able to get a first down. And they were down to a 4th and 2. I think they were able to get a first down, but they weren't able to convert a second first down. I think it was, and they were down to a 4th and 1. I think it was around their 45. I think somewhere around there. And Shane Steichen chose to punt to the offense that just closed a 20-9 gap, including a game-tying field goal with nothing left on the clock. He said because he trusted his defense. Well, why would you trust your defense if they just let 20-9 get away?
Yeah.
And why would you ever trust any defense? I mean, my goodness, the 85 Bears, the 76 Steelers. Why would you trust any defense against Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City? If it happens, you say, yeah, we did it. But you don't say, oh, we're going to do it, because that doesn't happen.
Time now to get to some of your comments. This comes from Dylan. He says, Ben Johnson ate Tomlin's lunch. I think we need to surround Coach T with some better coaches. His staff might be the worst in the league. The Rams play a very similar type of ball. The difference is they have Puka and Devontae Adams, and they have Matt Stafford. They're aging on his second team. Alleged over-the-hill quarterback is going to win the MVP. The ones the Steelers have tried in recent years, they've never come close.
Right. Well, in that case, the Rams made a very wise strategic decision to trade Jared Goff and I think some other assets to get Matthew Stafford, and it's paid off beautifully. He wasn't over the hill when they got him. He just was unaccomplished. But they took a gamble on his talent, and it has paid great dividends. And the Steelers, when they were in the quarterback market in January, February, March, there were two options that would have represented gambles. Daniel Jones, whom they played against last season and saw the challenges of dealing with him at his best. And that was one. And the other was Sam Darnold, who I don't think they had played against recently. And they represented gambles for whoever took him. It was less of a gamble to take Daniel Jones because the Bills brought him in essentially as a backup. And it was a massive gamble that Seattle took on Darnold. But they turned out to be right. I think a lot of the league looked at it like, oh, yeah, he had a great year, but look how that playoff game went. Man, that was that bad. I'm not putting $150 million on that or whatever the number was. And I think that Seattle said, yeah, we're going to do that. And it's been a terrific move. And if the Steelers had made that move, I think we'd be looking at a different football team right now.
All right, this one comes from Stush9000. He says, Steelers fans are always outraged over nothing. They're the biggest crybabies in football. I love the city and the team, but their fans suck. I don't know. I think it's all right to be outraged over 8 years without a playoff win or a failure to win a playoff game in 12 of the last 14. I'm okay with that.
I will say that, first of all, the stadium's still packed. The support is still great when they're, except for the absolute nadir like Matt Canada at his peak, so to speak. When you were dealing with that, the support behind the team in stadium has been very good. I don't know whether everyone who complains about mediocre Mike, it represents Steelers Nation. I can't know that. We know that the loudest voices complain about him and the circumstance among the fan base because they have the outlet to do that now. They have 24-hour sports talk, multiple other programs that exist on the radio, including yours, and there's also social media. So I think I'm not checking on what Browns fans are saying or what the fans of, say, the Bills are saying, because they haven't been able to make the Super Bowl with Josh Allen. I don't know that the social media Steelers fans are any more harsh than any others. I don't know that he's right, but I do think that the outrage, I mean, Mike Tomlin, it's always pointed out when Mike Tomlin gets outcoached. And look, they did not have a good strategic week last week. But the previous 2 weeks, or two of the previous 3 weeks, they defeated Zach Taylor, who was supposed to be the genius that would elevate the Bengals out of the Marvin Lewis era. And they defeated Shane Steichen, who had the Colts as the hottest team in the conference.
Well, to be fair to Taylor, he did elevate them to the Super Bowl.
He did, and then went right back. But my point is that Mike got both of them, but no one ever says, "Boy, did Mike Tomlin outcoach that guy," because he only loses games, he never wins them.
This is from Rich. This is also about Tomlin. Rich says, if the Steelers finish with a losing season, Mike Greenberg and Rich Eisen's head might explode. That's because they're two of the most notorious national Tomlin supporters that you're going to find. But their heads won't explode. They'll just blame Arthur Smith, Omar Khan, Art Rooney II, Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph. They'll just go down the flow chart of blame to avoid putting any responsibility on Tomlin, because they're predisposed to push back on local criticism that surrounds him. That's what they've been doing for 5 years.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, if they have a losing season, he's going to have a huge part in it, because he hired Arthur Smith. And if we decide that Arthur Smith is the reason, I mean, it's too early to say, but he did not have a great week last week. If you decide that Terrell Austin is the reason, well, he hired that guy too. And he has a significant say in the approach of the offense, the avoidance in the middle of the field, because it works into the balance of avoiding danger on the field, so to speak. And he has a significant influence on the defensive side as well. So, of course, if they have a losing season, it will be his responsibility as much as anyone's. But if you're going to criticize him for having a losing season, well, why don't you laud him for not having losing seasons? That's my only point.
Let's get to our predictions here, Mike, and wrap things up before the holiday. I'm going to go with Bills 27-26. I almost hit it right on the nose last week against the Bears, although now after being red hot with my predictions on props, I'm in a 2-game slump there. I'm going to go over 4.5 total sacks in this game. That's the combined average for the two quarterbacks. If you look at it, actually, I'm surprised that Allen hasn't been sacked more than he was. But if you get to 5 total sacks, 3 for one, 2 for the other, it doesn't sound like much. But I think if Rodgers plays, he's going to get rid of that ball so quickly. They are going to run a ton. And for as much as we think the Steelers pass rush is great, they got to Caleb Williams one time.
Right.
And sacked him one time last week. So that might feel like a low sack total, but it's why you should bet on it. And maybe you can move the odds if you don't get plus money there. If you say 5.5 and they give you plus money, go for it. Take that one then.
Yeah, for me, I have the Bills 28-23 over the Steelers. I think that is a cover, if I remember correctly.
It should be now, yeah, because it said 4. Actually, I saw it go down to 3.5.
I did see a 3.5 when I was
saw it
doing
at
this.
4.5 down to 4. Now in some places I'm seeing 3.5. The ones that had 4 have it down. It's basically a half point on any place you look. It's gone down.
I know that whichever book I was looking at said 87% of the bets. This is an interesting number because they always say bet against the public. 87% of the bets that came in on the spread at that point were on the Bills. So that was giving the points. 87%, 13% Steelers, which they always say you go against the public. So maybe that's a good thing for the Steelers, although maybe they just cover and, like you say, and still lose. My prop is
lower the line, because now you're baiting all the money that hasn't come in on the Steelers. Bait some money over to the other side by lowering the line and get people to gamble that way. Yeah,
exactly. My prop is Jaylen Warren over 64.5 rushing yards. I barely missed on last week's Caleb Williams. I think it was 22.5 rushing yards. I think he wound up with 21. So I had been doing pretty well on the props too, but missed on that one. But look, if the Steelers are going to have any chance in this game, they've got to run the football. And if they're going to run the football well and effectively and in a control fashion, I mean, can Gainwell come in on third down and break one off or break one of those nice little swing passes or whatever? Go for it. But they've got to start to rely on Jaylen Warren as an every down back, so to speak. And I don't mean by that, I mean he's your guy. Yeah. He's your feature back. That's what they used to call it in the 90s, the feature back. And I was like, shouldn't there be a D on the end of that? Shouldn't be featured back. Feature, like, what is it? You're going to write a feature about him? Whatever. In any case, that was the phraseology of the running back. Give him the ball, block for him, and give him the ball, and stop constantly moving guys in and out. And he's too small. Like, let him prove that he can't carry that load. It's way too deep in the season to still be losing downs, losing plays because you're worried about whether he can stand up to the beating. This is a game where he has to stand up to the beating, or you're likely to lose.
Have a good Thanksgiving, Mike. Appreciate you moving time and making time here on a Wednesday, and we'll make it happen next Friday as they get ready for who's it going to be next Friday? The Ravens, in advance of the Ravens game. So we'll talk about that quite a bit on Friday. But have a good holiday. All right.
Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, and I am thankful for your putting up with my continued defense of Mike Tomlin.
And all the listeners, all the readers, all the viewers, we appreciate you as well. We'll have part of the Friday football show on this Wednesday as part of our pregame show, which we'll post in advance of the Bills game this weekend. You'll hear a big chunk of what Mike and I talked about again on our podcast, the pregame show podcast, also brought to us by Mike's Beer Bar on the North Shore. Meet me at Mike's.